put enough of this.
Once I lived the life of a millionaire. Spent all my money, I just didn't care. Took all my friends out for a good time. Bought bootleg liquor and whiskey and wine. Oh, then I began to sing so low. Lost all my good friends, had nowhere to go. If I get my hands on $1 again, I'm gonna hold on to it till the eagle grins. I nobody knows you when you're down and out. In your pocket, now a penny. And as for your friends, well, you won't have any when you finally find your feet again. Everybody wanna be a whole long lost friend. Said it's mighty strange, but there ain't no doubt. Nobody knows you when you're down and out. Oh, when you finally get your feet again. Everybody wanna be a whole long lost friend. Said it's mighty strange, but there ain't no doubt. Nobody knows you. No, nobody loves you. Nobody knows you when you're dying and out.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for having us here. Thanks, Annie. Thanks to everybody for coming out. And now, stories from the porch.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Diemand, and this is my home. This is my life. So welcome to it. We are here to, we thought, so many people, when we talk about the Foundation for Community Justice, people say, geez, I've never heard of that. And so we thought, why not have a community gathering to tell people what we do? Because we're really cool. And so folks would like to grab a picnic table, rocking chair, please do. We are going to start the program. Thank you very, very much to Becca and Chris for starting it with their wonderful music.
Yes.
They are definitely community, and we appreciate that. So, the Foundation for Community Justice started in 2001. And since its beginning, the foundation has had its goals that coincide with the best of Franklin County. It is to promote opportunities for all to build life skills and pursue education, to encourage the community to work for justice, and to support collaboration among social agencies, business organizations, the court system, and community groups on behalf of Franklin County. Our first speaker is Karl Bittenbender. He is a former pastor, retired business leader, and local mover and shaker, and has been there since the beginning and will talk about the foundation's creation.
I've asked these people to join me because it's really important for you to understand that the Foundation for Community Justice comes out of people, real live people. And these folks are representing Judge Tom Merrigan, Dave Chichester, Ross Gorman, Diane Esser. He knows himself, Kurt Dorsey. And the reason we're here is because some years ago, Judge Merrigan was aware that there were some problems in the court system. And he was just really quite upset with the fact that everything was round and round and round. He's seen the same people come in front of him all the time. He said, this revolving door's got to stop. So he talked to Diane Esser, who was a marvelous attorney in our area. I'm not done yet, Annie.
People in the back will hear you.
Okay. That's all right. That's all right. I'll just be more mouthy as usual. Yeah. And Diane and the judge got the Supreme Judicial Court in Massachusetts to give them permission to run a lab. And Judge Merrigan had the audacity to believe that we as people might know something. So he and Diane created a project called the Reinventing Justice Program. And the first thing they did was to hold a series of question and answer, no answers, just questions around the Commonwealth, around the Franklin County. And there were 4 separate gatherings where you were asked, what's wrong with the court system? And Judge had a big list up here or a big placard to keep the answers on. He had a stenographer and so forth. The whole issue was to find out what you think. And there were never an answer given at that meeting. No challenges, no judge just said, we want to know what you think. At the same time he was doing this, court was roaming around the country trying to help teens help each other and the like. And he happened to be in California, and he met a judge by the name of, I've lost it.
Barry Stewart.
Barry Stewart. Thank you, Court. My brain is, that's why I have it on paper here. And Court and Judge Merrigan got Barry Stewart and a friend of his from the court system. I know I have it in here too. Court, help me out.
Harold
Gattensby. Harold Gattensby. From the court system in the Yukon to come down to Orange for a weekend, and from noon to midnight Sunday night, we got trained on how to listen in circle form. Listening in circle form is very special because by virtue of going sequential, there's time to listen and time to hear, and you get all kinds of wonderful results. This was so effective to the trainers that the judge created a system of listening circles within the court system. And this was a successful adventure in trying to create community healing. Over time, it became apparent rather quickly that the community resources were not strong enough to help the needs that were being uncovered. And then you had Dave Chichester, Ross Gorman, Diane Esser, myself. Tom couldn't participate because he was a judge. And we formed at that point what you are, the Foundation for Community Justice. And you're going to learn some more now. And thank you for my volunteers. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karl, and your clan. Welcome on back.
Thank you very much for the work you're doing again and again. Thank you.
So the foundation was started to be a placeholder of hope for innovation and change, a community sibling to the court system. As more and more innovations were institutionalized within the court system, the focus of the foundation became more community-oriented. Karl and the foundation's board retired, bequeathing the foundation's leadership to the present board and others to carry on the work of the foundation. One rule of the foundation was that no one who was working for the court system could be a member, but we still needed to be available to the court system. In 2010, we asked Lucinda Brown, the court's community relations coordinator, to be our liaison with the court. Are you coming up now? I could say more, but Lucinda Brown. So great to see everybody. Thank you for being here. So I worked for the trial court and was aware of needs that came to the court, and the problems in the community became the court cases. The court needed help from the community to address what the core issues were. So that was where I focused.
Excuse me, get to the mic.
I can try. So, since we're talking about stories, long ago, far, far away, we started working as a community to look at how we can make some changes, how the community can support people in times of trouble. The court changed because of the input that we had. And the court started to realize that their work could be broader than just what law was broken and what punishment are we going to mete out. That it could look at what were the needs that came about, that were behind the crime or the behavior. The trial court here in Franklin County started 2 drug courts. And at the time that we started them, they were not a popular idea. In fact, the trial court in general thought, this isn't what the court is supposed to do. This treatment stuff, what is a court thinking? However, we persevered, and one of the attributes of the drug court is recognizing when somebody has done something well. That the judge commented when somebody had made an accomplishment that was big for that person. The judge got to know people's lives. The judge got to know what success looked like for each participant. And the approval was very, very important. But more than that, sometimes they wanted a tangible way to recognize progress. The court turned to the foundation to provide incentives, they called them, gift cards, or for one person it was an alarm clock, that's the day before cell phones. So I'm going to tell you, I'm only going to focus on a couple of stories. So here's my one drug court story. There were hundreds of stories that we could tell, but here's one. There was a woman, a middle-aged woman, who had an extensive criminal record, who had been in and out of trouble her whole life, who was, and the root cause was addiction. And she got off to a rocky start at drug court. She couldn't comply. Then she started to make some important gains. She was trying really, really hard, but recovery is really, really hard. So 2 months after she'd started in drug court, her mother, and she'd been alienated from her mother got very, very sick in Boston, and she wanted to go be with her mother, not knowing what the outcome was going to be of this illness. The judge gave her permission, and she went, but there was one stipulation. She had to go to meetings, 12-step meetings, when she was in Boston. When she came back a couple weeks later, she told the judge about the meetings she had gone to. She had, and it's hard to walk through a closed door where you don't know the people on the other side. This was a major accomplishment for her to have gone into these rooms where she didn't know people and talk about her own personal vulnerabilities and her needs. We were so impressed with the strength that she had shown that we asked the foundation for money to buy a $25 bus ticket for her because she got to drug court using the bus. We also wrote a note recognizing all that she had done to
see her mother and then to come back and to talk about it. When she opened the card, she burst into tears and said that it had been decades since someone had something nice to say about her. It was a turning point for her. She ended up getting a sponsor, and she worked the steps. She reconciled with her mother, and not only her mother, but with her daughter. And this was, the turning point had to do with that $25 and that note of encouragement. The drug court continues. Actually, there are a couple of drug courts for the district court, and there's a family wellness program for the probate and family court. And the foundation has been a wonderful partner for those courts even now. The foundation has, with the help of the opioid task force, has been able to provide incentives and fishbowls for those other courts. So this is an ongoing effort that we're doing even now. The other program that court was the one who planted the seeds with Barry Stewart, and we were able to start a restorative justice program where the court referred people who had who were on probation to a community board to talk about what had happened, what were the issues behind the behavior, what obligations did they have because of their behavior. And we talked with the people who had been harmed to see what is it that you would like to see. We talked about the harm to the community. And people, we had thousands of people who went through the restorative program, and everyone had a story. Some people went through and complied with the letter of what we were asking. Some people really embraced the idea that forgiveness is possible, that restoration is possible. So here are a couple of stories about how the foundation has been able to support this program. And I chose one of these stories because I knew that a couple people were going to be here who actually lived, who were on the board where this case came. So I'm going to call the young man Eric. I'm not using the real names because I can't remember what they are. So anyway, Eric had been active in his addiction, and but had a job. He was working for an auto repair shop. His boss gave him $70 to go buy a car part from an auto parts place. He pocketed the money and used it and stole the part from the auto parts place. Well, he got caught and he got prosecuted, and he ultimately ended up with the restored program. So the court case completed. He had moved into recovery with the help of lots of people, including his family. And he paid his restitution. He owed $70. He paid the restitution. Somebody from the board had been in touch with his boss to find out what he wanted. And the boss wanted the restitution. That would make it right from his perspective. And so we thought we were doing just fine. The boss kept calling the board volunteer saying, "Where's my money? Where's my money?" And we said, well, the court just takes some time to get it out the door, be patient. And I went back and checked with the clerk's office because he kept calling and he was getting angrier and angrier. Well, it turns out the court had sent the restitution to the auto parts store that had gotten their merchandise back, not to the boss. So, and the court said, well, we made a mistake, nothing we can do about it. But meanwhile, we had this boss who was getting angrier and angrier, and so we turned to the foundation, and they wrote a $70 check to reimburse the person who was out the money. Part of the program was not just about the individual responsible making amends, but the community recognizing the needs created by the situation. So that was one way that we used the foundation in a creative way. And the last story I'm going to tell is about a young man I'm calling Justin, who couldn't pay his rent. He was working for a convenience store. He had a roommate. His girlfriend was living with him. He had just found out that she was pregnant, and they couldn't make ends meet. They just couldn't do it. So his roommate and he came up with this scheme. Right before the time when it's a convenience store, they do the drop, where you take all the money out of the cash register that by then has several $1,000s that have accumulated, and put it in the safe. Just before that's about to happen, his roommate was going to come in and pretend to stick him up. And it would show on the surveillance, and this plan was going to work. They were going to be able to pay their rent, no problem. Well, the story started to fall apart pretty quickly, and they both ended up being charged. The young man who ended up in the restorative program did some time with the sheriff before he was released back into the community, and he started the restorative justice program. One of the things that he had found out that, and the corporation wasn't interested in anything except, their money, and that they didn't want any apology. They didn't want to take part in anything. Well, Justin had found out that his manager had been fired because of his shenanigans. And he felt terrible because she had hired him, she believed in him, she trusted him, and he had betrayed that. So he went through the restorative process. We were in touch with her. She wanted to meet with him because it had uprooted her life. So what we do with the restorative process is the listening circles. And so we had a circle where we brought them together to talk about what had happened. What the foundation does is they would pay for the food. Because one of the things we've learned is you have a listening circle, you talk about profoundly difficult things, you come to some resolution. And at the end of that, people need time to debrief. And food goes a long way. So we had a table of food and snacks. What we saw was Justin and the manager going off and talking together. And they took place, the manager went outside for a smoke break. Well, when they came back, it was clear that there had been tears and hugs and an authentic apology and acceptance of the apology and forgiveness, that they were in a very different place than when they started. And the thing that was so important for me in this particular story is the manager died of a heart attack the next week. We couldn't have predicted that. She was not, she was younger than I am, and I'm not about to kick the bucket. We didn't know, she didn't know. Yet Justin had the peace that he had done what he needed to do. She had the peace that he had made an authentic apology to her. So those are some of the things that the foundation has taken part in. And these are all really about the community and about how we find hope as we move forward.
Thank you, Lucinda. I have so many great memories of sitting on a couple of restorative justice boards with Lucinda. It's been an amazing journey, this life, so thank you. The foundation has always looked for places where a small amount of money can make a big difference. And this focus has allowed us to provide money and resources that are not available elsewhere. We have also had the legal format of a nonprofit, so we can raise money and be a fiscal agent for other groups who asked us to be a repository for grants and donations. Working with the Greenfield Community College in the court system, the foundation sponsored student interns who worked within the courts for a number of years. We have also prided ourselves on our flexibility and simplicity, responding quickly through our all-volunteer board to meet the urgent needs within our community. One of our community partners with shared commitments was the Sheriff's Department under the leadership of Sheriff Chris Donlin, who began his tenure there in January of 2011. The foundation shared his vision from the beginning and supported his first efforts until he outgrew our small capacity. Ed Hayes, the Assistant Superintendent, will talk about the connections between the foundation and the Sheriff's Department and the expansion of the Sheriff's Department, which opened future opportunities for the foundation to offer support to the community through the North Quabbin Recovery Center. Stay tuned to hear more about that in a few minutes. First, we will hear from Ed about the Sheriff's Department commitment to the community.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ed Hayes. I work for Sheriff Chris Donlin, where I'm an assistant superintendent. Sheriff Donlin sends his warm hellos and greetings to his many friends who are present and his regrets for not being able to be here while he's on a holiday with his family. So, Annie Diemand has been with the sheriff from the very beginning and even before he was elected into office. And so much is shared between the values of Sheriff Chris Donlin and the values of the community, of the Foundation for Community Justice and its leadership throughout these years. The famous writer Dostoevsky, who wrote Crime and Punishment, he ended up spending many years in a very difficult Russian prison in Siberia. Afterwards, he wrote that book, Crime and Punishment. He's very famous for saying you can judge a community by how it treats its prisoners. And he wasn't alone in thinking that kind of thought. Many of our greatest and wisest people have always said, how you treat the most vulnerable people in your community is a reflection of your community. And it is a real honor to have been invited here to talk about the work that the Foundation for Community Justice has done to help the many people who have been incarcerated at the Franklin County Jail in Greenfield. Now, Sheriff Donlin knows very well, and like many of you know, no one serves a life sentence at the Franklin County Jail. There are men and women incarcerated there, and typically they're only there for a couple weeks, even less. People who are sentenced, they may be there for 6 to 8 months. Of course, there are people who are there for longer, but these are our community members. They're our neighbors, they're our brothers, they're our sisters, and they're returning to the community. And if we really want to think about how do we make a community safe, we make a community welcoming, and we make a community supportive. The Foundation for Community Justice has been there since the beginning of Sheriff Donlin's term. It first started with bus passes. So you have to understand that when he first started his term, Sheriff Donlin, if you were arrested in July and you were wearing shorts and sandals, but you were released in February, that's it. It could be like 20 degrees below zero and snowing, but you would leave with just what you came in. This was totally unacceptable. People didn't have rides when they left, and this is unsafe. So the Foundation for Community Justice has again and again helped individuals who have been in crisis situations to resolve their crisis and to be able to reintegrate back into the community. So what first started with bus passes in 2011, then later that year with funding from the Markham Nathan Foundation, funds were received to help pay for people returning to the community to get photo IDs. Now, some of these things we just take it simply for granted. You know, everyone in here probably has a driver's license or some kind of an ID. But when you go to, and you're incarcerated, many of the people do not have their birth certificate, they don't have their ID, they don't have their social security card. And think about that. What do you need to do if you want an apartment? What do you need to do if you want a job? These are very, like, things that we take for granted that can become immeasurable barriers for certain people that don't have safety nets. And those are the people who are incarcerated in our jails. The individuals who are there, people are held accountable for doing crimes, but what people also don't understand or they don't see is the context of that person and their life. We screen people for trauma when they come into our jail, and the vast majority of people in the jail have a very, very troubling and traumatic childhood, and this has a big effect on their adulthood. Many people who are incarcerated don't have luxurious safety nets. In fact, their families may have addiction problems. They may be unable to support people. So this is where there's a giant gap in community support that the Foundation for Community Justice fills. So the Foundation for Community Justice has helped Serve Safe classes happen at the jail. This is a kind of certificate program where you can show that you can work at a restaurant or a food processing center and you know how to handle food safely. So this helped people to get jobs. The Sheriff's Office helped with some startup money for the North Quabbin Recovery Center initially when it opened. And since then, the Foundation for Community Justice has supported it by offering 1 month's rent each year. So there's really no limit to the amount of help that the Foundation has done for people to help resolve their small crises that they can seem small for us, but for them, some of these problems are important barriers that can stop their progress, that can stop their recovery, and they can be insurmountable problems. So I'm grateful for all of the work that the Foundation has done. It continues to be a great partner for us in the community. Sheriff Donelan's idea was that he helped start a program called the Transition from Jail to Community program. And Lucinda Brown, who's sitting in the front row, was helpful from the very beginning to help shape that, and so is Annie Diemand, and so has the Foundation. And the idea is that the jail is not separate from the community, it is a part of the community, and the people who are incarcerated there, they are our community members. They go in and then they return, and whatever we can do to help support them, whatever we can do to help them in their recovery, that says something beautiful about what kind of community we live in and what kind of a people that we are. So I thank you very much for all of your work, and to all of the people who helped put on this event, and to all of the Foundation volunteers and board members. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed. It was pretty interesting when Chris Donlan, called and said, "Hey, would you be on the small board, a different board, to figure out what the community needs were," and so it was pretty funny. I when somebody gets arrested and serves time, wherever that is, that's where, when they get released, they're released. They don't get to go back if they live in Gloucester or North Carolina. So, I'd sneak out of work with a little packed lunch from the Diamond Farm and buy a bus ticket and pick them up and give them a ride to the bus station so they could get to where they could get support, So that was pretty cool. So, as the years have gone on, another of the Foundation's long-standing community partners has been the Greenfield Community College. In addition to the internship program, GCC was interested in giving opportunities to local residents who were turning their lives around after finding themselves in the court system. For a few years beginning in 2014, led by faculty member Leo Wong, sorry. The college sponsored a program called Changing Lives Through Literature, and the foundation gave funding for the program's books. Herb Hodis was supposed to be here, but he's not feeling well, so Lucinda Brown is going to talk about changing lives through literature.
Thank you. Changing lives through literature was something that several judges had thought about. How do we get to know people, the people that are in our courts? How do we get to know their stories? And a judge in the eastern part of the state came up with this thing called Changing Lives Through Literature, a course where people who have been involved with the court system, as well as judges and probation officers, study literature together and talk about it so that they can learn from each other and learn each other's stories and strengths and struggles. So this went on for several years. Judge Hodis would be able to explain much more eloquently than I exactly what it meant. I've been to a few graduations, and to see the relationship among the classmates, the 15 people, there was a bond that you don't usually see between a judge and somebody that the judge has sentenced. But this is a story that frankly is yet to be written, because the COVID stopped the program in its tracks, and we've lost dear Leo to UMass, which
It's starting this fall. It's starting back this fall.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It's not going to be run by Leo, but it's starting back this fall.
Yes, oh, that's wonderful. Yay for Leo. Yay for Franklin County. But the Changing Lives Through Literature class has been reinstituted. We start things here, and other places figure out that what we've done is really good, and then they adopt it. So now it's not this innovative thing that they're doing way out there in Franklin County. Now it's something that's been institutionalized within the court. There is now a coordinator for the state, for the court system, for Changing Lives Through Literature. So there were many more hoops that the professor needed to jump through. But it's going to be back in place. And it's Brian Kaptulik, who's an anthropology professor, who is going to be offering it, the class, for 15 students, judges, probation officers, and people who are on probation or on parole or have been incarcerated. And one added feature is they're going to get college credit for it. Woo. So I got a call on Thursday. The reason I know all about this is I got a call from the chief probation officer of Superior Court on Thursday asking if the foundation would pay for the books again. So they're going to be using an anthology of short stories as the basis for this the fall course, and they're hoping to offer it in the spring. And of course, I said, yes, the foundation will pay for your books again. So that is our contribution, and I'm looking forward to hearing the stories from the participants in a year.
Thank you, Lucinda, for standing in for Judge Hodis. Franklin County was not immune to the epidemic of substance use disorder brought on by the flood of the opioids, and the community has responded in typical Franklin County form by creating the Opioid Task Force and reinforcing collaborations. GCC continued to be a creative community partner, believing that education can give people a fresh start and understanding that people in early recovery may need to learn and practice new coping skills. GCC turned to Judy Raper, Assistant Dean of Community Engagement, to design and teach a college success course for students in recovery, for people who are trying to start over. She saw that some graduates of her students some graduates of her class who wanted to restart their college program were barred because of past debt to GCC. The foundation created the Esser Education Fund in 2019 to address this need. The fund was named in memory of Diane Esser, co-founder of the foundation. Judy Raper will now tell you a story about her experience.
Sorry. I'm super sensitive to sun, so I have the sunglasses on. That's not going to work.
Hi everyone, it's nice to be here today. I see a lot of familiar faces. My name is Judy Raper. I am the Associate Dean for Community Engagement at Greenfield Community College, and I have a very interesting and very diverse job, so I won't really describe it, but one thing I will just say is that one of the things that I am in charge of is overseeing all of the community education workshops or classes that are non-credit, so personal enrichment, lifelong learning. So if anyone sitting here today is interested in offering one, I'm in the process of planning for the fall, so I just thought I'd put that out there. Nina actually did one for me last year, so if anybody's interested, it's a lot of fun. It's a way to sort of get the word out about something you care about or a business that you're trying to start or something like that. So, okay, Anne actually said a few of the things that I was going to talk about today, but essentially this class that Anne described started back in 2017. The opioid task force had been formed at that point, and I believe it was John Merrigan who called then President Bob Pira to say, is there a way for us to partner? We have a lot of folks in the community who we think could be extremely successful at GCC, but they just need a little help bridging, you know, whether they're coming from the drug court or a sober house or the jail or wherever it is they're coming from. They need some help, you know, bridging their time in the place where they were getting clean and sober and going back to school, because it's pretty daunting to go back to school when you're also trying to get clean and sober. And so Bob knew that I was in recovery. I had talked to him about my own lived experience, and he asked me if I would consider putting together a course for these individuals. And so I knew immediately who I wanted to partner with on this, and I called up, many of you probably know Kenny Chartrand, who works at the House of Corrections. Kenny is a GCC alum and a dear friend of mine, and I knew that we could make a nice team. And so we started this course back in 2017. I think we've now run it about 9 times. And since I am standing here, I will let you know we're running a very special edition of the course in September. So if you know of anyone whose educational journey was disrupted by substance abuse and they are ready to come back to college, this is a terrific path back. And essentially what happens is they come together in this course. Kenny and I are their instructors. We introduce them to a lot of GCC staff and faculty so that when they finally come to campus, they don't feel like they don't know anybody. They actually have met some of these folks. And we also just talk about what it means to stay clean and sober when you're trying something really new, different, and sometimes scary. Not all of the participants end up going to GCC, but it's often a path towards something else. So it can be inspirational no matter what they end up deciding. At the end of the course, we have a graduation, much like the Changing Lives Through Literature graduation, which is an extremely moving event. And the participants get $1,000 over the course of 2 semesters in scholarship money from the Opioid Task Force to put toward books, computers, or whatever they might need for the class. So the Opioid Task Force generosity has allowed this to go on now for 6 years, and like I said, we've offered about 10 different courses. So I believe I met you when we were serving on the Jail to Community Committee together, and I had talked about how there was one obstacle that the Opioid Task Force could not help us overcome for a lot of the students in my class, and that was that they had past debts. And often when you have a substance abuse challenge and you are in school and you decide, I can't take this, you're ashamed, you walk away, you don't withdraw in the way that you need to withdraw to ensure that you're not leaving a lot of debt behind at the institution that you're departing from. So we had a couple of students in our class in 2019 who I could see had tremendous potential, but this barrier was almost insurmountable for them. You know, I believe they each owed somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,000, which doesn't sound like a ton, but when you don't have any savings account and you're living paycheck to paycheck or you're trying to get by, that's insurmountable. That's something that you feel like you can never ever pay off. So Lucinda approached me and said, what if we set up a fund named after Diane Esser? And Will, her husband, had taught at GCC for many years, and Diane's also a GCC grad, so it seemed very appropriate. What if we set up a fund where we are able to help people get that debt paid off so that they can actually enroll? Because you can't enroll if you have outstanding debt. So we were able to do that. The foundation was able to do that for 2 of our students. One of them, I've had about 150 students in this class, so I haven't tracked all of them. So one of them I've lost a bit of touch with, but the last I heard, she was serving as a recovery coach for the Behavioral Health Network, and she was a phlebotomist. So I think she's doing quite well. But the other I have kept up with, and she actually said, I said, I'm not going to say your name. I got in touch with her, and I'm like, I'm going to be talking about you. Do you want to kind of send me some information about where things are for you right now? And I said, I won't use your name. And she goes, please use my name. I want everyone to know how well I'm doing. So her name is Allison Dembeck, and she's doing great. And she came into our class. She was so scared. She was a non-traditional older student whose educational journey had been disrupted by substance abuse. But she had several years of recovery under her belt when she came in. And she was just one of those people that just was so, her intellectual curiosity was just brimming after, years of not really having that kind of experience. So she sent me a paragraph to share with you all to let you know what she's up to these days. So she graduated from GCC in May of 2022 with an associate's degree in liberal arts and a concentration in farm and food systems. She transferred as a junior to UMass Amherst in the Stockbridge School of Agriculture, majoring in sustainable food and farming. She enjoyed her first year at UMass immensely and had been able to take a variety of courses ranging from global food systems to permaculture design. And this fall, she'll be taking a plant propagation course as well as a course called Pigs and Poultry, which will allow her hands-on work with animals. She also went to worldwide opportunities on organic farms this summer to the UK for the month of July, which allowed her to use the skills she had learned during the year. It was an incredible learning opportunity for her. She made the Dean's List both semesters. She was inducted into the Phi Kappa Phi Honor Society, which offers invitations to the top 7% of second semester juniors in the country. GCC prepared me so well to transfer to a 4-year university. If I had never taken the college success course, I would have never known my own potential. I will be forever grateful to the Foundation for Community Justice, GCC, and the Opioid Task Force for allowing me the opportunity to attend college after being affected by a substance use disorder for the greater part of my adult life. Thank you so much.
Judy, thank you. That is really cool. That's really cool. The foundation saw another opportunity to support the recovery community and another community collaboration, this time in North Quabbin. In 2018, through the generosity of the sheriff and the hard work of the North Quabbin Community Collaboration, a recovery center opened to give a safe place to those in recovery, those thinking about recovery, and to allies to hold programs, meetings, and conversation. In its first year, 350 people passed through its doors. Ever since then, the foundation has paid a month's rent each year to support the continuing hard work that takes place there. And now, John Richardson will tell us more about the North Quabbin Recovery Center.
Can you guys hear me okay? Yes. Okay.
I'll help you raise that up a little bit.
Yeah, you're good. Thank you, Chris.
So I wish I had brought notes. I was coming up here to tell you guys about my time at the North Quabbin Recovery Center, and then I'm listening to all the stories from all the speakers, and I'm like, there are so many threads that have touched my life, and I didn't realize that they had touched parts of my story. And like as I'm listening, I have a story about that, and I have a story about Judy. Excuse me. So I get to tell you guys the personal story about the way that recovery and addiction in this community impacted me. So I grew up in Athol, not technically Franklin County, but I think we're spirit siblings. Is that what you said, Lucinda? So Athol is, we're basically right here, right? So grew up very normal life, and somehow still fell into the pit of addiction. And what happened for me was, like, I won't get into too many gory details, but I hurt a lot of people, and I got so lost in my own head, in the way that I was living, and it just an endless cycle of living that way, that everybody that I cared about gave up. They tried with everything they had for years, like, this is going to change one day, but nobody had any answers. Nobody knew the stuff that you guys have been trying to learn here for like the last 20 years. And eventually society as a whole gave up on somebody like me. And the answer became, we will incarcerate you. If you don't learn the lesson, we'll incarcerate you longer. And then, you know what I mean? Eventually we'll stop trying, we'll just throw away the key. So that was my experience. I started getting in trouble in my late 20s. Became a serious addict and alcoholic in my early 20s. So I started with the state prison system. I ended up at Franklin County House of Corrections. So I have experience with the human aspect that I got to experience there. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't just another number. I went into that system and got treated like a person. They found me, the next thing. We weren't done with you. I look back into my father's experience, and he was also incarcerated, and he got that. Here's the door. It's February. Good luck getting back to Athol. I didn't. I got a ride over to treatment. It was the next step. Like, my hand was held, and not to say that in the way that you would say, like, we're gonna hold your hand because you can't do it yourself. But people didn't give up on me. That's what I'm trying to say. The first time that I experienced that, I didn't experience that in the state prison system. It was in Franklin County. And then I didn't learn my lesson, right? So I get back into the same old mess. I got involved with that drug court program that Lucinda was talking about in Orange. And, that was the first time, I think, that I was really treated like a human being, with things going wrong in my life. Like, with real things going on in my brain that didn't make me a member of society, or a good candidate to be a member of society. And the drug court introduced me to Alcoholics Anonymous. The drug court introduced me to changing lives through literature, to the college success program, and I got all these little threads that I started to, they started to kind of weave themselves together, and I had no idea that I was so connected to this group here. But like, this is, all these little threads all tied themselves together, and they became the rope that pulled me out of those steps, right? So it took a little while longer. I had to learn some more lessons, but I had picked up enough along the way that, the middle of 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, when everything was shut down and I didn't have a hand to reach for anymore, I still already had those lessons, and I had the place in the North Quabbin Recovery Center. Like, when I first started to try to get this, I wanted to back up actually a little bit. So, in my early struggles with addiction, I would sit and brainstorm with my loved ones. Like, I don't know how to do this. We have no idea. There's no guide. There's no book that says do it this way and you'll get better. And the average person has no idea. They say go to a detox or something like that. So to have a place like the North Quabbin Recovery Center, to have like this safe space where I could go, people were going through the same thing that I was going through. I had peers that I could lean on. I don't know how to express that to you guys, what that's worth to somebody who feels so lost, so alone, and locked into the way things have been my entire adult life. So, that safe place then brought me in as a member, and I became like, I got purpose out of that, I found a lot of people in early recovery, we tend to like, we want to reach back and help the next guy, and sometimes prematurely, sometimes we just go, and we don't know what we're running into. But I had a support system at this point, so to me, like, I've had an impact from so many people in this group here, and it's eye-opening. It's like it has meant so much to me. So I thank you for asking me, Ann, and thank you guys all for everything you do. Because that place has been a rock for me to kind of get a foundation on myself. So since 2020, I've become a productive member of society. I was talking earlier, I got back in the trade that I had abandoned to active addiction. Coming next year, I'll be looking at, I'll be going for an electrical journeyman's license. I just bought my first house. Those things were not possible. That was not going to be my life. So it is all of you guys in this room that have helped, pull me up along the way. So that's my experience. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Meanwhile, a quiet current in the Foundation's funding stream has been a mini grant program that can support healing and recovery in Franklin County, where a small amount of money will make a big difference. Social service and other local agencies make referrals for clients who have a specific need, where a grant up to $100 will solve a problem that is holding them back. A lack of an ID, money to rent a post office box so an unhomed family can have a mailing address, an unforeseen car repair that took rent money, a gas card to get to a new job before their first paycheck arrives. We will now hear from a dedicated collaborator who is the human face of compassion, Amber Ortiz.
Oh my gosh. Wow. What a beautiful day it's turned out to be, right? On the way here, I was like, whoa, this is going to be interesting. But I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm honored, yes, and delighted to be on the porch with you all. I'm Amber, and I, like some other people, it's so cool to see people that I am familiar with here, right? I remember Lucinda. Hi, honey. My daughter is here. I remember Lucinda from my early work as a professional working in the educational field. I started off at the Literacy Project and did some collaborating there, with Ed there as well, with Judy. As I transitioned my career, I got to go back to school, moved into more of a different field, if you will, out of the educational realm and into a different frontline kind of atmosphere. I've been at the Institute for Health and Recovery now for 3.5 years. I am what they call a family engagement worker. It is basically my job at the Institute for Health and Recovery is to work with women, children, families, if you will, teenagers. There's some teenagers there too, who are affected by alcohol, tobacco, other substance use issues that they might have. They have mental health diagnoses, usually. Usually there's violence that they've experienced in their lives. They have trauma that they've experienced in their life. And here's the catch, they're simultaneously involved with the Department of Children and Families. So take that life and add that other layer, right, of oversight from the Department of Children and Families to their lives, and you can imagine numerous times I've sat with clients, that's their main stressor, right? So being unable, feeling inadequate to take care of your children, feeling unable to be able to provide something really small for your child, it's an awful feeling. And sharing that space with them and trying to bridge those gaps, if you will, in short periods of time. But they're waiting on their DTA to kick in because they were just released from incarceration after they had a domestic in their home for protecting their child from an incident. Or, gosh, you name it, there's gaps, right, between the time that they apply for benefits, and right now, like, I need benefits and I need them now. It's going to take 2 weeks for your SNAPs to kick in. Oh, SNAP doesn't cover cleaning supplies that will clean up your deceased husband's mess. He just died 3 weeks ago in the home, right? We got to the place upstairs. You can move upstairs, but that's equally as icky. Let's get this place cleaned up, but I don't have any money, right? So there I am, raising a family, grateful to be in the position that I'm in with a wonderful partner. I'm dishing out cash. I'm dishing out cleaning supplies. I'm dishing out U-Haul rentals. I'm dishing out phones if I can get them, right? I can't do that. I just really cannot sustain my life with giving all the time. However, I do it, and I approached Lucinda and the Community Foundation for Justice, or sorry, the Foundation for Community Justice, about mini grants. And I just started to approach them probably 2 years ago or 3 years ago for these mini grants. I still buy the coffee for my clients every other week or so. I'm getting points, but that's okay. You know, and due to the confidentiality and respect for my clients, I don't want to get into too many details, you know, about my clients that I serve. So today being here and just spending a few minutes talking about the work that we do is really just enough time. The folks that, I do have notes, that was not, any of that was not on my notes. In these periods of time, like in these gaps that are really times of immediate, crucial need, it's urgent, it's important, right? You don't have a phone, you can't be in contact with your children in case of an emergency, right? These are mothers and fathers who are recently incarcerated. These are mothers and fathers who have spent 5 years clean, if you will, from the incarceration system and are learning to adapt in this world. Yeah, I mean, there's so much going on. As I apply for the grants, and on behalf of the clients that I serve, they are made aware of the foundation. We do spend some time talking about the foundation, and I really enjoy that space, right? To talk about people in our community who believe in them, right? They lead these conversations with a greater sense of hope that people are out here fighting for them, that they believe in the reform, that it's necessary to help people as they transition to decrease the recidivism, I said the word right, to go back into incarceration and move on with their lives, to grow, to change, to make an impact in their own way on the world. Their increase of hope is restored. The access to other people's love, that's your love. You might not see it. $100 goes a long way. It's through me, and I'm grateful for all of you for supporting these funds and helping in any which way you can. But it just restores them so much to know that people are there and helping them in this way. Reduces the stigma that's attached to being in need, right? No questions asked. You need a phone? Let's figure this out. I know their whole story. I know their whole story back from when they were wee little, you know? I'm an adult survivor of early childhood trauma. I am a daughter and a sister of folks who are affected by incarceration, which makes me affected by incarceration too. So I get it, right? I understand the space that people are in. To the donors and volunteers and the other frontline warriors, I'll call you, that are here who continue to do the work, I really appreciate it on behalf of my clients, on behalf of folks. Can I tell another little quick thing? So there's this camp fund, all right? And I don't know if somebody's talking about this camp fund. It's hard. As many of you guys are parents, I have a family. My energetic, lovely, smart daughter here benefits from the camp fund. So I was able to submit an application on behalf of myself and my partner, and we got a free week of camp, right? Sponsored by the foundation. and I get a break for like a week in the summer. It's tough. Summers are tough for families, right? So we're on a personal level. I am super grateful, and my daughter is super grateful. Our family is super grateful for giving us that time that week to restore ourselves, if you will, as we grow and take a break. You know, and keep moving forward. But on behalf of the clients who the foundation has helped me to support, I express my gratitude. I thank you. They thank you, and collectively, all of us, we should all give ourselves a pat on the back. And we are in this together. And I appreciate all of you for being around and continuing the work that is really necessary to keep our community moving forward, growing, changing, adapting to all of this. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Jen. A theme for the foundation throughout the last decade or so has been to look for ways for that the foundation can actively support healing and recovery in Franklin County. And a couple years ago, I had an idea that I brought to the foundation. I have, for more than a decade, worked with the Greenfield High School right after Thanksgiving until right before April vacation. Dennis LeBlanc and I do a grief class for children who have lost somebody to death. So a few years back, I thought, geez, you know, these kids are graduating, and I asked the board if we could start giving them scholarships. So last year we did 3, and this year we did 1. And it's just really cool to be able to know that we're helping, you know, somebody who has had such a devastating loss, because it definitely affects the rest of their life. So that's been really wonderful to be able to do. So, so one of the last speakers is the next one. We have lived through the COVID pandemic and know that it has disrupted everyone's lives for a few years. Post-pandemic, the foundation found a new way to support healing and recovery in Franklin County, focusing on children. Last spring, in 2022, with a grant from the Opioid Task Force and our own fundraising, we created a summer camp scholarship program. We paid for 17 children to attend a week of summer camp last year. We repeated this program this spring with funding through the Community Health Improvement Plan, known as CHIP, and the Opioid Task Force. Jen Audley, who is the project coordinator for the CHIP program, will tell you how the foundation's summer camp scholarship has gone.
Thanks, Anne. Thanks, everybody. As other people have said, there are a lot of people here that I know and that I haven't seen in a long time and that I haven't seen all together in one place. It's really lovely to be here and have the chance to learn more about the foundation and to talk a little bit about one of the foundation's newest projects, the Summer Camp Scholarship Program that Amber talked about. And I have dropped futons off at Amber's house. And we've intersected lots of times, and I'm really excited that you benefited from this project, because, you know, I think hearing the stories that everyone has told, I don't have very many individual stories to tell about this program, but I think what I want to try to kind of bring home, as I think the last speaker in this section, is that the foundation does this really interesting direct work of helping individual people, thousands and thousands of individual people, from lots of stories of that today. But over the years of the foundation's existence, they've also changed our culture as a community. So my work as the coordinator of the Community Health Improvement Plan is really at this kind of like, how can we change the systems in our community and in our state and in our world? How can we change the environment to make it so things like restorative justice are restoring people to communities that welcome them, and that are restoring them to places where they want to go, and they have a reason to engage, and where they know that there are people who are cheering them on. So that's how I see this summer camp scholarship program, as sort of knitting together the whole story of the community foundation's very palpable direct impact, with also making Franklin County and the North Quabbin a better and better place to live. Because the other thing I heard through these stories is this increasing clarity that, like, it's not us and them. It's not the people who have power and money and privilege and the people who don't. It's not really about benevolence. It's about recognizing that this is about all of us. All of us are affected by addiction. All of us are affected by the need for recovery. All of us are healing. And so what the summer camp scholarship program did is it said, wow, coming out of the pandemic, such a hard time for families, for children, for communities, for places that work with young people, for places that work with families. And that first summer that summer camps opened up again, the opioid task force had a little bit of funding that they offered to the foundation and said, I think I'm going to give Lucinda the credit, because I think that this really was Lucinda's idea. Said, well, what if we offered 1 week of summer camp to families who wouldn't otherwise have really considered that as a possibility? What if just that small gesture, that gift of saying, we will pay for 1 week, is enough to get, it's hard. It's hard to send your kid to camp. It means you have to change your routine around, you have to plan for it, you have to pick the camp, you have to apply, it's a whole other thing. And it also can be a wonderful chance for a child or a young adult to do something different, meet some new friends, build confidence, practice something that they've never gotten to do before. And like Amber said, it can be a really great opportunity for the folks at home to also have a break up their routine, see their child grow and thrive in a different kind of way. And so in that first year, it was a very fast turnaround. It was like 3 weeks of applications, 17 families, and the way that it worked is very clever and reflects, I think, the way that the foundation has thoughtfully crafted these programs, which is that the referrals come from people who work with the families. So that the concept is that the agency or the organization identifies the family that could use this help. And the identification is through this filter. Would it help healing and recovery in Franklin County for this family to have this gift of a week of summer camp for their child? And the person who works for the agency, or it might be a church, or it might be a school, or it might be a neighbor, goes to the family and says, is this something that you would like to do? And if they say yes, and they have picked out a camp, the ally fills out the application and attests to the fact that this is going to help healing and recovery in Franklin County. And then the foundation just does it. They just write the check to the camp, and it all just happens. And there are no questions asked. There's no needing to prove that your story is worthy. So there aren't a lot of stories that I have to tell about this program. What I can tell you is that, was very interested in the project. And this year, when I had the opportunity through the state's Rural Vaccine Equity Initiative program to add some additional funds for the second year, I took it to my board and I said, you know, I know we don't usually do kind of direct support kind of mini grants, but I think that we can look at this as being the kind of systems and culture change that we're trying to create in Franklin County. And they totally got it, and in fact, they doubled the money. They said, we want to give them twice as much money as I had asked for. And then we had a 6-week window of applications this year, so a little bit longer. And we went from having 17 kids go to summer camp, courtesy of the Foundation for Community Justice, to having 103. Woo! And those young people came from 80 families, and they live all over Franklin County. They live in West County, they live in North Quabbin, they live in Montague, where I live, they live in Greenfield, and most of them are having an opportunity that they would not otherwise have had to have some fun this summer. And it's a very small thing, but I feel like that is what the foundation is really about, is these small gestures and gifts that can, you know, maybe they are the one thing, they come at the right moment that makes you realize, like, you know, okay, I can breathe a little bit, I can dream a little bit, I have some space to be able to imagine a different kind of life. Or maybe they just put some wind in your sails, because like life is really hard when you're, especially when you have little kids or medium-sized kids or big kids like I do. Sometimes you're just putting one foot in front of the other and you're constantly feeling like you aren't doing enough. And so to have an opportunity to be able to have your hand held to do something special for your child is really remarkable, I think. And I'm so grateful to the foundation for taking this on, because administratively it is not a simple thing. 80 families applications is really different from 17 families applications. And I know that the foundation guaranteed that they would fund every application that came in. And because there were so many more this year, the foundation matched the money that they had raised from outside sources, from the Opioid Task Force and from the Rural Vaccine Equity Initiative. And it was a lot of money. So I think it's worth it, but I do recognize that that it was a big lift for this small, all volunteer run organization. I'm very grateful for it. And I'm also feeling like, and I think this is gonna maybe connect back to the next part, feeling like, now maybe is the time for us to figure out how are we going to make the seeds that the foundation plants grow into things that are watered and maintained by other folks and by this larger circle of people. Because, say, 30 or so organizations helped identify the families that had those summer camp scholarships. So the circle has just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think that's what I want you to imagine, is like the ripples of, the drop of the bus ticket, the drop of the hand holding, the drop of the one summer camp scholarship really ripples out in this way that I think has had remarkable impact on the community. And I'm so glad to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen. I remember when Lucinda called and said that Chip was giving us $10,000. I felt like it was Christmas. I just was like, holy moly, like this is amazing that we're gonna be able to do this, because the families that we were able to affect were amazing. So, and I do know it was a heck of a lot of work for just a couple people, and we appreciate that. As a board, for the work that was done by those two people. So, do you want to talk about the wildflower? Do you want to talk about the wildflower lines right now?
Briefly.
Yeah.
So this is Court Dorsey, and there was a grant that we gave out, and he's going to talk about it, just briefly.
Just briefly. The Wildflower Alliance is an alliance of folks that work with people in recovery, and this year we made a grant to the Wildflower Alliance to allow them to buy boots and blankets and winter things for people who are unhoused, unhomed, for last winter, and we'll do so again this year. So it's just a new initiative that we've taken on over the last year, and it's been very helpful.
Thank you. I'd actually like at this time if the board members could just raise your hand, present board members, and then past board members too. Yep, thank you, Carl. So if you have any questions, please talk to any of us, okay? Because it is a really wonderful group, and I keep saying, after a meeting, I'll come home and I say, I just fall in love. It's really sweet. The board of the Foundation for Community Justice is committed to growing and changing and continuing to find ways to give comfort and cash to Franklin County residents in a simple and helpful way. We recognize that we need to grow and change and never be content with what we have done. The Foundation is your partner, and we hope you, as our partners, can be our ears and eyes to hear where the needs are and to see what can be done. At this point, what we were thinking might be cool is if people could, desserts are going to be brought out, so people can get up and get yourself something to drink. There's coffee inside or hot tea here. And just talk amongst yourself about where you envision the board growing next. What would be, do you see needs that perhaps we can fill? And we're thinking maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and just so real briefly, and then a few minutes for people who want to say what you came up with. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. Okay? Thank you.
I'm here for it. Hi there. How are you doing, Ed? Hi, Susan. I'm an Yeah, we got grad school, left project. I was at the GCC part-time, and at the Dorsey project part-time, and at the career center part-time. All three. It looks like carrot cake. I love this one.